Hey there. This morning, I had a chat with a client about rental income. She is about to rent her house. She's moving in with somebody else and she's going to rent her house, and she just wanted to know what she could write off on her taxes. So let's chat about it. There's the first thing I just want to chat about, go over, is that there's a difference between current expenses and capital expenses when we talk about writing stuff off on your taxes. So I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail on those capital expenses, but I will just explain that capital expenses are expenses that will last a really long time. So if you replace the roof on your rental property, for example, and it also needs to be fairly expensive. So more than maybe $1,000 or so. That's not, those two criteria are a good way to sort of ballpark whether you should have that should be a capital expense or not, but it's definitely not the be all end all on that. Most expenses are current expenses and they can be written off in the year that you incur them. Capital expenses need to be depreciated over a longer period of time. So today I'm just going to chat with you about current expenses. So what can you write off in the year that you pay for them? So some of the more common ones are things like property taxes and insurance. If you pay utilities for your rental property, then you can deduct that as well. Property management expenses are another one that's pretty popular, and those ones are pretty self-explanatory. If you pay property taxes on the property, you're going to get a bill from the city, and that's your proof of the taxes that you paid. Some of the less common ones are like advertising. If you had to put it up like your ad on Kijiji, and I mean, I guess that's free, but you can boost it or whatever. If you paid for advertising for your listing, then you can definitely deduct that on your taxes. Insurance, if you have insurance on your house, which you definitely should have insurance on your house, then that's deductible as well. The mortgage interest that you're paying, you'll get a statement from the bank at the end of the year for the full calendar year's worth of interest, and so you can use that number and deduct that amount from your income. When we talk about use of home, when you have a business, you're only able to deduct a portion of these expenses. But if you're renting your whole house and you're not living there at all, then you can deduct 100% of these expenses related to the property that you're renting. Professional fees and office expenses, that kind of thing, is another one that you can deduct. So if you have somebody like an accountant doing your taxes or somebody's doing your bookkeeping, then you can deduct those fees, as long as the bookkeeping is specifically related to the rental income and it's not related to another business that you have. And that's the same thing with office expenses. They need to be directly related to the income property. A lot of times people will have a management company to do that for them. So usually, if you have a management company, then you don't necessarily need the office supplies, that kind of thing. If you have to travel, like if you're having to fix quite a few things, or we'll just travel back and forth between where you're living and the rental property, or you have to travel around picking up supplies or something like that, then you can deduct those travel expenses. Those aren't usually very much, and I would usually advise clients to just track how many kilometers you're driving, because that's the easiest way to do it, because there is usually very few travel expenses related to rental property, especially if it's in your city. If you're having to fly across the country, then maybe that's a different story. But if you're renting within the city, then usually travel expenses are not a big deal. And that sort of falls in line with motor vehicle expenses. I guess your kilometers would be motor vehicle expenses, not travel, but same sort of thing. It's generally not very big. Those are sort of the big ones. Those are the big ones. Those are the main things that you can deduct on your taxes from rental property income. Something I do want to mention, though, is that if you lived in this property for part of the year and then rented it for the end part of the year, or a portion of the year, maybe only a few months, then you definitely want to make sure that you're only taking expenses related to the period that you actually are renting for. So maybe you lived in your place that you're renting from January to September, and then you rented it for the last 4 months of the year. Yeah, October, November, December. Just kidding. The last 3 months of the year. Then you could only take those 3 months worth of expenses. So you'd have to divide all of the expenses that you get for the full year, like your mortgage interest number, which you'd get for the full 12 months. You'd have to divide it by 12 and then multiply by 3, which, I mean, I guess you could just divide by 4 at that point. So that you get only the 3 months worth of that expense. You can't deduct the full year if you've only got rental income for a piece of the year. So that's what you need to know about renting, what expenses you can write off on your taxes. I would keep a spreadsheet throughout the year to just record all this stuff. Definitely keep all your receipts, take pictures of them, and keep them in a folder. Just labeled receipts is even enough, just so that you have a copy of them, a digital copy, because it's really easy to lose paper or the receipts fade, and it's just not very reliable. It's not as reliable as digital, especially if it's on the cloud. So take pictures of your receipts and make sure to keep a spreadsheet as well, so that when it comes to tax time, you don't have to do all of the bookkeeping for your rental amounts all at once. If you have any questions about any of that, then let me know in the comments. I'm happy to answer them for you. And if you're looking for accounting and tax tips sent to you every week, then sign up for my newsletter. I've left the link to that in the description. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you tomorrow.